Hello, we've made some mistakes. Number one, the roof is leaking. And number two, the battens that were attached to the roof and the ceiling are falling off.
If you're new here, welcome. My name is Millie, and with my partner Jack, we're converting a Sprinter van into a camper van with absolutely no relevant experience whatsoever. We're planning on taking the van on a trip around Australia that will finish around July next year. Now, Jack has already finished at work and I finish up in 2 weeks. The quicker that we can get the van done, the less time that we have to pay rent and the more time that we have to travel. So, safe to say we are feeling the crunch. So with that being said, let's crack on. So in terms of roof battens, this is what we're dealing with. Originally, we glued the roof battens on with hard as nails, which in hindsight was not a great idea. Basically, the point of the battens on the roof and on the walls is to have a surface that you can attach the roof and walls to respectively. We did originally plan to rib nut the battens onto the roof and walls, but because I'm still learning, I bought a rivet tool instead of a rib nut tool, and so we just kind of thought, fuck it, let's just glue them on. That became clear that that was a really bad idea when they started to peel off, so don't do that. So yesterday Jack removed all the battens that were stuck onto the roof and made some new ones. So now I'm going to put the rib nuts in and we'll screw the battens to the roof, which is what we should have done the first time round, but we're learning, okay? We're learning. The reason that we use rib nuts is that if you were to just screw the battens directly into this hole, they wouldn't actually be securely attached at all. So you use the rib nuts to make a threaded hole that we can screw into.
So now we have these threaded holes created by the rib nuts. We can actually just screw straight into the roof. A problem that we've been mulling over for most of the build is how the heck do we install the vertical battens that support the wall? And today was the day that we finally solved it. The solution we landed on was to create pocket holes at the top and bottom of the battens and screw them diagonally into the metal of the van. Now, the biggest problem is that the ledges that we are screwing the battens into are not consistent all the way along, so each batten needs to be individually cut to size and angled so it will fit. The installation itself is a bit of a process, and I'll go into exactly how we installed the battens later in the video. Today we installed 3 of the battens, and now that we have the process somewhat defined, it's time to make all the battens so we can install the rest tomorrow. We really struggled with the weather today. We don't have a workshop, we're literally just working in the front yard and on the street. So Jack's been moving his work table around to avoid the blazingly hot sun, and we've had to work around the rain, which has been tough.
So today's been a good day. We've finished making all of the vertical battens for the walls. We have fixed the horizontal batten that fell off. It's now attached with actual screws. And then we've also nearly finished measuring up the roof battens so we can rib nut them in. I realized in my haste to get all the rib nuts in on Saturday that I actually put some of them in the wrong spot. And now we've run out of rib nuts. So tomorrow we'll buy some more rib nuts and then we can finish installing all the roof battens. It's definitely starting to feel like we are getting out of this mid-build slump. I was also talking to my friend Mitch the other day, who is an actual legitimate builder, and he said that it's really common for like halfway through the project to feel like it's not worth it and you want to give up, and why did you even start this in the first place, and everything you've done is wrong. Just kind of how I've been feeling. So that was really reassuring, and I'm hoping that once we course correct from the battens falling off and the roof leaking, then it will all start to feel like a bit more smooth sailing. So now I just need to finish up measuring the roof battens and I'm going to call it a day.
It took us the better part of a day to put the first 3 vertical wall battens in, but once we got the technique down, we smashed out the remaining 8 today in about 2 hours. So here's the process. Jack had pre-cut and drilled all of the battens to size, as each one was a different size depending on where it sat on the wall. To install, Jack lined it up, I drew the lines in Sharpie for where it needed to go, then Jack used a screw and created a guide hole in the metal. Then he removed the batten and drilled a hole into the metal where the guide hole was created. I then put glue on the batten for extra support and we popped it into place. The final step was to screw through the pre-drilled hole in the metal to attach the battens, and done. We've made life a little bit harder for ourselves by installing the bed before we install the walls and ceiling. For example, here I'm installing riv nuts in the roof while climbing around a jungle gym. I definitely don't recommend doing it this way. This is what the van looks like all battened up. It's taken us 4 days, but we're finally back on track. We actually have battens that are securely stuck and the walls and roof are ready to go on.
Roderick!
If you're wondering why it's taken until Friday to fix the leaking roof, it's because it's rained every single day this week. Plus, we're taking the van on the first test drive this weekend, so today is the day. The roof is absolutely filthy from being parked under a tree, so first things first, I need to clean the solar panels.
I'm going to chase you around this valley as well. You watch me, I'll find you. I'll show you what to do. Look for gold. Go for gold fosking. I'm telling you, that's what the money is.
Next, I need to clean the existing sticker flex sealant that we'd previously put on so we could apply more to stop the leak. Like everything in this build, this took so much longer than I expected, and I had to go to work. So while I was at work, Jack added extra sealant and wired up the critical electrics. It's going to rain on Saturday night, so hopefully we don't get wet, but I'll keep you posted later in the video. At 9:30 on Friday night, we decided to head to the campsite a day early, so we rolled into camp around 1:30 AM and it was pitch dark and pouring with rain. Time to put the sealant to the test. Luckily, it worked incredibly well and we woke up bone dry. Actually, everything worked really well, and while we don't have walls or a ceiling or a kitchen, the van was super comfy and I'm now even more excited for our trip around Australia. I think we've learned our lessons about doing things properly the first time, as we've just had a week of pain fixing our mistakes, but time will tell if we do this again. Okay, that's the end of the video. Thanks for watching and we'll see you next time.